Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, yo! I'm Jovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to episode 55 of Buha's Block. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing the first day of training camp. I got back a couple of hours ago from the Lakers practice facility, and I have 3 takeaways from training camp. Quickly, before we get started, I wanted to touch on yesterday and Media Day. So for those who are not watching on YouTube, I did post a live stream about Media Day with 5 takeaways. Unfortunately, I had some audio issues with StreamYard, so I did not end up posting that on my podcast feed. So for those who are listening on the audio side, you ended up missing that. So quickly, I will run through my 5 takeaways from Media Day and just the things that stood out to me. So number 1 was LeBron and his attitude. He seemed refreshed. He was in a really good mood. And I thought that was an important tone setter for the Lakers as they begin camp. Number 2, I thought that the players were very complimentary of JJ Redick and his organization and structure and discipline and communication. And it sometimes came at the expense of Darvin Ham and the previous coaching staff. There were some subtle and not so subtle shots at the previous coaching staff. Number 3, I thought D'Angelo Russell showed maturity with his apology about last season and sometimes lacking professionalism, sometimes lacking a team first attitude. So for those who know, like I have been critical of D'Lo at times, but I thought that he deserved props and praise for the way that he handled certain questions yesterday at Media Day and for him taking accountability. And, at times last year, he would, decline to speak to the media after a bad game, or he would deflect when asked tough questions about his performance. And I thought that he handled that, brilliantly yesterday. So I thought that he deserved recognition for that. Takeaway number 4 was the injury updates. So positive and negative. Jared Vanderbilt on the negative front said he was not quite sure if he's going to be available for opening night. He did say things were progressing well, but when asked directly if he felt he would be ready for opening night or if that was a realistic possibility, he did not confirm that. And of course, with these things, injuries are fluid, right? And you just never know how someone is going to react. And Rob Pelinka mentioned potential setbacks, and we've seen with the Lakers, there often tends to be setbacks with some of these injuries. And so for Vando, I would say right now it's looking like he's not going to be available for opening night and probably will miss the beginning of the season. But then on the Christian Wood front, Christian Wood said that he has about 2 weeks left until he begins ramping up and getting back into game shape, and then another 2 weeks after that of ramping up and getting back into shape before he returns. So that would put him at returning about 4 weeks from now, which would be late October, early November, which would actually be about a week ahead of schedule based on a week ago Rob Pelinka said Christian was going to be out another 6 weeks. So that 5 weeks from then would be the 4 weeks from now. I know it's a little confusing what Christian Wood said. So I think from that perspective, that was positive. And then the last thing for me, takeaway wise, was there wasn't much to glean from a tactical schematic standpoint. I tried to follow up on a lot of the things that JJ Redick had said in terms of making Anthony Davis a playmaking hub, making LeBron play off the ball more, take more threes, putting the ball more in Austin's hands, a guy like Max corner crashing and sort of adjusting his offensive role. And none of the guys took the bait. They all played things close to the vest. They all kind of towed the company line and didn't really get into too much specifics, and also said that at that time obviously camp had not started yet. They had only had these voluntary group and individual workouts and had communicated with JJ, but not in an official coach player capacity in the sense of like going through drills and scrimmages and stuff through like that lens with him as a coach, because technically they're not supposed to do that. So I didn't get much from that, but the one thing I got was that the Lakers are going to shoot more threes next season, and in 4 of the 5 seasons in the LeBron AD era, they have ranked in the bottom 10 in terms of attempts. And if you just look at the way that the game has gone since, for me, I would say about like 2011, you have to be a high volume 3-point shooting team to make the finals and win a championship. Three-point shooting has become a critical part of NBA offenses in the modern game. So I think that's a positive that the Lakers are going to be shooting more threes. Multiple players, LeBron, AD, Max Christie, Rui, all mentioned, JJ pushing them to shoot more threes. AD said that when JJ was, when they were texting during the Olympics, JJ was texting him to shoot more threes in those games as well. So that seems to be a clear priority for JJ Redick and his coaching staff. We will see on Friday with the Lakers' first preseason game what exactly that looks like, and if this team is just going out jacking 50 plus threes. I don't think it's going to get quite to that level, but I do think you will see an uptick, and I would be surprised if this team is not in the top half of the league in terms of volume and just overall attempts. So that's something that I gleaned. Just it was pretty obvious. Like JJ has been pushing the 3-point attempts. So now let's get into today's takeaways from the first day of camp. And before we begin, I just want to ask you, for those watching on YouTube, please subscribe if you've not yet subscribed. And for those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please consider following my podcast so you don't miss an episode. All right, so let's get into it. Takeaway one for me is that JJ Redick wants to have a 9-man rotation. And JJ has been very transparent about a lot of his coaching stuff. I mean, he named the starting lineup right before media day, and he's now talking about his rotation. And like with Darvin, with Frank, they were a little bit more cryptic, both with their starting lineups and how deep they wanted to go with the rotation. And it feels like with JJ, he's an open book. I thought it was interesting that he named a 9-man rotation specifically, and not a 10-man or an 11-man, the way that some teams like to do in the regular season. Like 8 or 9 is getting a little bit closer to a playoff rotation. Sometimes it even gets down to like 7. But so 9-man rotation for the Lakers entering the regular season. And so we know the 5 starters, D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis. And so that means that as of right now, there are 10 players vying for 4 bench spots in the rotation. Of course, there will be nights where it's a blowout, or maybe someone gets in a foul trouble, someone gets injured, and you're going to adjust the rotation. You might go in 10, 11 deep. But if JJ's saying 9-man, we're going to take him at his word. So for me, the way I read that is I think Gabe Vincent, Max Christie, Jared Vanderbilt, and Jackson Hayes / Christian Wood are likely going to be the 9 players that he's talking about. When asked about the players vying for those spots, he specifically mentioned Gabe, Vando, Max, Jackson, Cam Reddish, and Jalen Hood-Schifino. Did not mention Christian Wood and did not mention Dalton Connect, though he did note that it had been a long day, had a lot going on in his mind, and he probably forgot a player. So I would suspect that was probably Dalton Connect and not Christian Wood. It was totally lost on me until media day, or right before media day, that Jackson Hayes and JJ Redick have a pre-existing relationship. They played together for about a year, over 2 seasons in New Orleans. So they have a pre-existing relationship. JJ was actually Jackson's vet in New Orleans. So I think JJ is going to be more of a Jackson guy than more of a Christian guy. And so far, like when I was doing my depth chart, I had Rui as a starter and Jackson as the primary backup center. And that's the way that I think this is trending right now. So if we're looking at a potential 9-man rotation for the Lakers, I think it's going to be the 5 starters with Gabe Vincent, Max Christie, Jared Vanderbilt, and Jackson Hayes. Those are going to be the primary 9 guys, with Dalton Connect probably being guy number 10, and then maybe Christian Wood being guy number 11. So the caveat to all this is that Jared Vanderbilt and Christian Wood are currently out. So you don't even have the 11 guys really competing for 9 spots. So what that does to me is it opens it up for a competition between Dalton Connect and Cam Reddish for that 9th spot, because I do think it's going to be Gabe Vincent, Max Christie, and Jackson Hayes as part of the top 8. And then that 9th spot will come down to Connect versus Reddish for what do the Lakers need more? Do they need a little bit more offensive burst, and they want to see what the rookie's made of, and they want to fly him around screens and use his offensive skill set and repertoire and shooting to boost the offense a bit? Or are they looking for more of a Jared Vanderbilt replacement? At which point, I think Cam Reddish is clearly better suited to do some of those Jared Vanderbilt type things than Dalton Connect is. Though, of course, there's a Grand Canyon size gap between Cam Reddish and Jared Vanderbilt overall, in my opinion, as a player. Maybe not quite Grand Canyon size, but like there's a pretty big gap there of Cam has some high highs defensively, but he's not as consistent and just not overall as impactful as Jared Vanderbilt. Actually, you could argue like is a better scorer / shooter than Jared Vanderbilt, but Vando's defense and energy and athleticism and just his impact on the game is really difficult to quantify. And I just think he's a much better player than Cam. So for me, I would lean toward Dalton, and I would say he's probably ahead of Cam, but I thought it was interesting that Cam was mentioned among the potential candidates for a bench spot, and Dalton Connect was not. Again, we don't know which player JJ accidentally left off, but I would assume it was Dalton, but we'll see on Friday. And JJ talked about mixing up lineups during, so they broke off. They had about a 2-hour practice today, and then it broke off into scrimmaging and live action stuff for the final 45 minutes. So there was 3 half court groups going they split the groups into 6 lineups, and then they had 2 teams going up against each other on 3 different half courts at the practice facility. And JJ said that Jalen Hood-Schifino and Max Christie got some reps with the starters, that those were 2 of the standout guys at camp on day 1, and that he was just mixing and matching lineups, trying to experiment, try to see different combinations and just try to figure out the rotation. So I thought really the biggest overall takeaway for me was that the Lakers are going to have a 9-man rotation. That probably means that someone we were expecting to be playing isn't going to be playing, if not a couple people. And again, when everyone's healthy, and it just tends to be the case that not everyone's healthy, that's just how an NBA season goes. But if everyone is healthy for some point, I do think right now it looks like Dalton Connect and Christian Wood are the 2 guys that are on the outside looking in of the rotation. But if Jalen Hood-Schifino pops, like maybe there's a chance he's in the rotation. Like there's a lot of different ways this can go, but for right now, I think the safest bet or the most pragmatic estimation here would be the starters plus Gabe plus Max plus Vando and then Jackson Hayes. So I think those are going to be the top 9 entering the season. And then on to takeaway number 2, which for me was the vibes around the Lakers are at an all-time high. And I can say this is my 5th season covering the Lakers. This is my 5th training camp. And I cannot remember the Lakers having this positive, joyous, upbeat energy around them to this extent in any of the 4 previous training camps. That's not hyperbole. That's my honest opinion and just my honest assessment about this situation and what I'm witnessing. And just walking into the gym today and seeing, typically under the previous regime, it would be, all 6 courts would be taken, but it'd be a lot of just kind of half speed guys doing, post workout shooting or maybe occasionally like a drill. But walking in today, and yes, it was the first day of camp, and we'll see if this stuff upholds, but all we can go off of right now is first practice, first day of camp. Like it was intense, and they were blaring music. They had a DJ Meal playing in the corner and playing a mix of old school rap and more modern rap. And, so they have music blaring, which is common in terms of like music is often blaring at NBA practices, but a live DJ during practice and afterward, I thought was cool. But so clearly trying to make it like this upbeat, up-tempo environment and just high intensity, but guys were going through drills and they're shooting stuff at a game style speed, and just the intensity again, like that's the word that kind of comes out for me. There was one basket with LeBron, Bronny, and Max Christie going through shooting drills together. So guys had like an extra pep in their step and first day of school vibes. I get it. So this could be an exception, and let's see a month from now, 3 months from now, 5 months from now, what the vibes are like, and if this energy is maintained throughout the season. But I thought it was a really encouraging first day in terms of a first impression for us of what we saw. And I think you saw an intentionality with the assistant coaching staff and the player development staff that we didn't always see last season. And that was something that not only JJ touched on, not the previous stuff, but like just what they were doing today. But it was something that LeBron and Max Christie both touched on in terms of JJ and this new coaching staff being very detail oriented, being very efficient, being very time sensitive with drills and how they run a practice. So to me, like, I think the overall energy right now, there's this just renewed sense of optimism and energy and spirit with this group. And it's a group that at times last year could be a bit moody, and you could come in and the vibes wouldn't be great at practice, or the vibes wouldn't be great in a media session. But that was just not the case yesterday, the case today. Like, I just thought it was incredible. And like media day, I take a little bit like the vibes were very positive for media day, but that's just kind of, again, that to me is more like the first day of school where you're getting your picture taken and you're going station to station and everything's great. Everyone's put on 5 to 10 pounds of muscle. Everyone was working on their handle and their 3-point shot in the off season, and everyone's optimistic. We're going to compete for a championship. So like some of that stuff I take with a grain of salt, right? And it's a bit cliche, and you can't take away too much from it. But practice, like you can't lie with practice, right? Like you either have a good practice or you don't. And it seemed like the Lakers had a very good, intentional, effective practice, and just unanimously, like that was the messaging that came out from JJ, Max, and LeBron. And LeBron is a guy who, in particular, and I mentioned his mood from the media day takeaways, but LeBron is a guy who does not hide his mood. And he's backed JJ. He's proactively backed him. He's been very complimentary of him and the coaching staff so far, and their detail-oriented nature, their seriousness, and just the direction of the team right now. So LeBron is on board. Max Christie's clearly on board because he's about to, he just got paid and he's about to have a big role in this team. So I think things are trending in the right direction in terms of just the spirit of the team, the energy of the team, the approach of the team. And I think a big part of that is this new coaching staff and the way that they're running things right now. And that brings me to takeaway number 3, which is that the Lakers had an important team meeting on Monday night, just a few hours after media day in Beverly Hills. They had a dinner together and they had a presentation together from the coaching staff where JJ Redick and his staff laid out the Lakers' vision for the season, their identity on offense and defense, their team values, and some ground rules for the season of what the coaching staff is expecting from the players. And I think if we go back to last season, one of the biggest complaints was a lack of organization, a lack of structure, a lack of planning. And so JJ arranged this team meeting to have the Lakers go over all this stuff before camp started, so they would not be going over it during the first day of camp. Because sometimes you'll hear first day of camp, you're going through a lot of walkthroughs, you're going through a lot of sets and really talking through things and breaking it down in terms of what you want, what you're looking for. And really it's like that second day that you start really ramping it up and getting into scrimmaging and getting into implementing that stuff. But the Lakers did their work early Monday night, talked through these things, laid it all out, and were then able to just go straight into implementing them and working on the sets actually in practice. JJ talked about they had 3 ATOs after timeout actions that they worked on, and he said they went 2 for 3 on those in terms of really grasping them and executing them at a high level. So he said one of them that they still have to work on a bit, but that he liked the way, like he liked the results from the action, but he still thinks the group has a little bit to go to fully grasp it and just sort of absorb it. But they were going over offensive stuff, defensive stuff, and then the final 45 minutes they were able to scrimmage and get into live action stuff. So they were able to have a productive practice, for first day of practice because of this meeting last night. And LeBron talked about the importance of just laying everything out and clearly communicating what is expected from everybody. Max Christie, who has a similar sort of approach as JJ in terms of being a very analytical guy and being a pretty effective and clear communicator himself, like Max was talking about just the value of that, of the coaching staff has really been disciplined and letting everyone know what is expected of them and just the clear vision and identity of this team and just what they want to be doing on both sides of the ball. So I thought that's one of those things that, like, you hear team meeting, like sometimes that could have a negative connotation. This obviously was in a positive sense, but like those are the things that could be overlooked or glossed over. But to me, like that was that was the most interesting thing from practice outside of the rotation stuff, was just like this team is operating in such a different way than last season. And JJ, it's almost like he has the playbook of all the things that went wrong last year, and he's doing his best to address them. And you know that this is kind of what happens, where if coach gets let go, then the front office, the organization will relay to the next coaching staff, like, these are the things that went wrong. These are the things we're looking for. And JJ has that advantage of knowing where Darvin and his staff came up short and ways to try and address that. But I also think this is who JJ is. Like, this was a guy who was maniacal with his preparation and his efficiency as a player in terms of his offseason workouts and taking the exact same number of shots from the exact same places every single day. And just hit, and I don't know if any of you guys saw the clipped series on FX, but there's a thing, and I think JJ said this wasn't true, but about him like having a baked potato on game days at the same time. And he was saying like he did have his game day routine and was very like monk-like with that, but not with a baked potato. But in that, they kind of talked about that. So like, this is just who JJ is. He is a guy who's very much about the preparation and putting in the work and being very organized and structured and thinking about every single little detail. And so far, he has earned nothing but rave reviews from the players, both publicly and privately. I've only heard positive things about JJ, and there's always that new car element to a new coach coming in. But I don't think to go in a different direction with this. Like, I don't think this was the same case for, say, like an Adrian Griffin last year in Milwaukee, right? Like, I don't think that you can still be a new coach and get off to a bad start in your new place. And remember, like Griffin completely changed the defense the Bucks are playing and the defensive scheme, and a lot of players didn't like that and they had issues with that and stuff. So like, you've not heard anything about that from JJ. If anything, it's been just amplifying a lot of the things that the Lakers did well last season and improving on some of the areas where they struggled, like offensive rebounding, also transition defense. And that's kind of its own push-pull there of, if you're going to be going for more offensive rebounds, that can compromise you defensively in terms of your transition defense. So we're going to see, if we're seeing more threes, more offensive rebounds, better transition defense, those are cleaning up some of the margins there and cleaning up some of the areas that the Lakers were weaker in last season. And really in some cases for multiple seasons now under both Frank Vogel and Darvin Ham. And it's always like, things are always perfect in day one. So I think everything there needs to be some level of, okay, like, well, let's see it on Friday. Let's see it throughout the preseason. Let's see it to start the season, or let's at least see it a month or two into the season. But so far, going back to the 9-man rotation, JJ setting clear expectations. These are the 5 starters. These are going to be the 4 guys. Like, he hasn't decided that yet, but it's trending toward, I think, there being a clear 4 guys. Then you have just the vibe around the team right now is very high, and much higher than I think it was at this point last season, despite that team coming off of a conference finals. And then you also have this team meeting, which everyone spoke highly of and seemed to really, set the standard for work ethic and values and identity, and then also put the Lakers in position to really get into the work on the first day of camp rather than having to talk through and walk through a lot of these things. So I would say overall, like, a very positive first day. And Lakers still have 2 more practices this week, Wednesday and Thursday, before heading to Palm Springs and then playing on Friday against the Timberwolves to open up the preseason. So I will let you guys know if anything changes. I probably will not be doing anything on Wednesday. Maybe we'll be doing a vlog, but Thursday I will be back with another episode. I will try to go live. Hopefully my audio is better, but I will likely go live on Thursday, and then that'll be a live stream on YouTube, and then I will take the audio and post it on the podcast feed for episode 56. But thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Let me know in the comment section on YouTube what you guys think of what you heard and saw from training camp, day one, what your impressions were. I would love to hear from you guys. But as always, for those on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video and comment. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back on Thursday. I will talk to you then.